If something tragic happens in your life, you want to reach peace. This morning we'll show you how. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Collector's Cafe and Art Gallery on Kings Highway in Myrtle Beach between 76th and 79th Avenues North. We're focused on Project Reach Peace. And we're visiting with the clinical director of the Coastal Samaritan Counseling Center, Dr. Jim Remington. Good morning, Dr. Remington.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for coming in. Do you mind if I call you Jim?
I prefer that.
You take that on a Monday morning.
Really,
early.
you bet.
A real opportunity. Of course, a lot happening. You all kicked off the opportunity to kick off Project Reach Peace. Excuse me. I mean, you kicked off some trials, and it looks like they were very successful.
Yes. Well, we found out that there's a certain kind of dynamics that go on in people who've had a loved one murdered, which is different from having a loved one die of old age or an automobile accident or something else. And this came out of a client that I had. I learned a whole new field about a loved one who's been murdered that I simply didn't know before.
I'm having difficulty even trying to take that in, Jim, when you think about a loved one that's been murdered. And of course, the statistics are, tremendously high.
They're tremendously high, you know, and I think they're going to get worse. I don't want to get into politics, but it's almost like we're becoming immune to death and to violence. And I'm afraid all of this is going to continue. What I like to do with people to kind of get a feeling on what's going on is focus on a child or a grandchild, someone that you really are close to you, and imagine someone coming in and deliberately, intentionally killing that person, often brutally. I can't quite go there. I can think about it, but I can't quite go there. That's why our group is facilitated by people who have lost a loved one. I, as a mental health professional, am on the sideline. She is the one who leads the group because she's been there.
Right. You actually have someone who has not only lost a loved one, but lost a loved one to murder.
Yes, exactly
who's
right.
had a loved one murdered.
That's right. She's the one, she was the initiator of this group and is really the main facilitator when we have our group meetings.
Is that common for folks in facilitating, whether it is the persons who've lost loved ones to a car accident or to just old age? Is it common to have a facilitator who's not a therapist, who is someone who's experienced that? In this instance, obviously, someone whose loved one was murdered.
I think it's critical in this case. In the other cases, I'm not so sure. But in this case, I know it is critical that a group is going to need to be led by someone who has lost a loved one brutally murdered. There's just an intensity there that you don't pick up just with book learning,
right,
or even dealing with some of the other. In our area, there are grief and recovery groups, but there are no groups specifically designed like this, and that's why we're excited about offering this to the community. There is no group like this.
For the trial runs that were held in September and October on those Sundays at 6 p.m., are you comfortable sharing with viewers just what those early sessions were like? I mean, just to give a sense, if, as you said, you were on the sideline, of how she could kick off a session to bring people into the fold to help them.
Yeah. What happened during this group is it confirmed some stuff I kind of knew intellectually, but here I saw people really sharing it, the hurt that they're having. And what goes on with this kind of thing, it never ends, for example. If you have a loved one die, you have a funeral, a grieving in it, it sort of slowly gets better with the passing of time. This doesn't happen with a loved one because usually the justice system is drawn out. Right. The one lady who's in charge of our group, her son has been dead for 2 years, and the perpetrator still has not gone to trial. They keep postponing it and postponing it. So here, every time there's a trial or a postponement, the person has that hurt all over again. Right. Then projecting forward, whenever that person comes up for parole, these family members are committed to going there and testifying against parole. So this may go down 1 or 2 generations.
Right.
You know, that blows my mind. And the lady has told me, she said, I'm gearing my children and maybe my grandchildren that when this man comes up for parole, our family is going to be represented there. If it's not me, then the next generation back. So it never ends. It just goes on and on and on.
And the desire is not to, and of course, obviously, Coastal Samaritan Counseling Center, whether it's Christ-based or not, I know y'all interface and have some churches support y'all, along with being a United Way partner. But there's not in that instance where it's the children and grandchildren that are being encouraged to be there on parole, some folks would step back and say, will there be a point where it's forgiveness and where you let it die, essentially, and that person's going to have to live with it no matter what?
You're putting your finger right on a real critical area here. What I'm sort of picking up from the people is that eventually, and I underscore eventually there's an element of forgiveness, but not an element of forgetness.
Right.
So they may forgive you. You're a child of God. You violated God's law, but I still try to honor that. But you still took a loved one out of my life.
Right.
So I may forgive you at a spiritual level,
right,
but humanly, I'm still angry at you for what
right,
you did to my life.
Right. Very good point. If a viewer needs to get off to work now or get family off to school, what's the best way to reach? Is it picking up the phone and dialing the 843-448-4820 number?
Exactly right. Please dial that number. And as you pointed out, we did have a trial group.
Right.
And now we're waiting for the community to let us know. We have some people out there that want to be a part of our next group. So
right,
we have a group all ready to go in dynamics. We're waiting to hear from people. So if they will call that number.
And it's highly confidential.
Oh, absolutely.
Folks can maintain anonymity.
Absolutely. Calling in anonymity and even sitting in the group. You do not have to reveal anything about yourself if you're uncomfortable doing that.
That's great. Well, there's great information at coastalsamaritan.org about the Coastal Samaritan Counseling Center. A lot of trained professionals like yourself as the clinical director. You're dealing with everyone in there. It's a small group, I think you pointed out, but you all are a United Way partner and supported by
right,
lots of churches.
What I think makes us unique, and of course I'm biased, is that we are faith-based. Now, there are other mental health agencies, and I'm not putting them down. I don't go there. But our staff has a faith basis to what we do, and it's pretty apparent. Now, we're professional counselors, we're licensed counselors, but we have a faith base that helps us identify with people who come in really hurting. Now, if they have a particular faith, we will identify it and help them find what's basic in their faith that will help them deal with the problems.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, if someone comes in and has no faith, we still relate to them.
Yes,
But we
as
are
counselors. And they know that you all are, whether they have a faith or not, they recognize your role as a faith-based counselor.
Right, and what we're finding out is that a large percentage of people who go for mental health services initially contact a pastor. Mm-hmm. So a pastor is in a unique position to make referrals to us.
Mm-hmm. That's simple, those three words, faith-based counselor together. Which comes first, the counselor or the faith-based aspect?
It's all tied in together.
Right.
I don't think there is a first.
Yeah.
I think that it's all one big package.
Right.
The better word we like is faith-integrated counseling.
Oh, that is better.
Okay,
yes.
I like it a little better.
Yes.
What that means is all of us are trained. All of us are licensed. All of us are experienced. But in addition to that, we have a very personal faith that we bring into the counseling of. Now, we're not proselytizing. We're not out there to convert.
Good,
we're not out there to change anybody's religion, belief, or add to it, whatever it may be. But we do have a very confident assurance in God that God is still in charge in spite of what you've experienced.
The Project Reach piece, this would be open, or would there be a cost associated with that?
Absolutely not.
Right.
We do not put any charge on this.
Okay.
No. This is something that our agency feels very strongly about and offer it to people who have a need.
The other staff counselors, there is a cost for therapy, oftentimes much lower than they would have to pay in the, quote, open market. But since you all are a 501c3, I suspect, a corporation there, you're in a position where you can pass on some of the benefits.
Yeah. We never turn anybody away because of finances. That's an absolute with us. Now, what we're finding is that many churches, in addition to United Way, many churches have us in their budget, often in the mission committee within their budget. So many churches understand that the majority of people coming to us either do not have insurance or cannot afford to pay the full rate.
Right. So
they make donations. We have what's called a reduced scale. Mm-hmm. And basically, when you come in, you will write down what your income is. And then the secretary will say, well, this is a suggested amount, but if that's difficult, then when you get in with your counselor, it can be negotiated.
That is tremendous,
Never turn
Jim.
anybody away because of money.
I don't think there's anything of its kind in this area.
We think it's important.
That's fantastic. CoastalSamaritan.org, or again, picking up the phone, 843-448-4820. For our viewers, as you know, a lot of our viewers are in the PD and southeastern North Carolina. Even though they're not right here in Horry and Georgetown, the ability to be involved in Project Reach Peace is, I mean, folks will maybe traveling in hours to be a part of that. There's probably not many groups of its kind in this area or in the southeast.
The closest group that I know of is in Columbia.
Okay.
We really expect people will drive some distance to come here because there's not very many groups. There are no groups outside of this immediate area, and I don't know how far out.
Right.
But we expect people will drive some distance to attend these groups.
Right, right. That's why it's so important just to pick up the phone and call and try to, and your goal again is to know that the numbers are there so you can justify having those on a regular basis. At the same time, if a viewer may have the need to talk but you don't have enough folks to justify having the seminars, they're still able to call in and seek counseling.
Yes, indeed. There are two parts to really good therapy. One is the individual part of it. The other is a group therapy. In many instances, we will meet with somebody on a personal basis to begin with because they may have some hang-ups that prevents them from opening up to the large group. But my own preference is to have a group because there you have the sharing, the camaraderie, the understanding that all of us have been there. This is my experience. This is what I suggest to you and so forth. So there's something about a group that you can't really get one-on-one counseling.
You highlighted both here orally as well as in writing in the pamphlet about Project Reach Peace that folks can maintain anonymity even in sitting in a group setting.
Oh, yes.
And oftentimes do you find that whether you deal directly with folks that have lost a loved one to murder, do you see that those persons are oftentimes even scared to go out because if it could happen to their loved one, it could happen to them?
Indeed. See, that's sort of, you're pointing several important things here. One thing is that people who've had a loved one murdered are fearful that that person or someone that person lines up may also come and get them.
Right.
That's a big hunk of it.
Right.
The other hunk of it is that they're reluctant to come out to other people because they have a hard time knowing that other people can really understand where they are.
Right.
And that's where that's why this kind of program is so important, to let us get out to the community and invite them to come in.
So critical that your facilitator has experienced this herself.
Indeed.
So very important. Real quick about yourself, Jim. Are you originally from the area?
No, as you probably can tell by my voice, I'm a Yankee.
Not too much, actually. The South has kicked in very well.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, I'm from Michigan, and I have a long career history of involving both theology and in psychology.
I saw that, and also the author of 3 books, Jim.
Right.
Wow, what a feeling to put pen to paper to make that commitment. I saw one was regarding the fear of flying.
Yes.
One, a spiritual investigation in Peru.
Right.
And another one, of course, divorce, healing, and recovery.
Right.
Divorce, healing, and recovery. The father of 3 and the grandfather of 5.
Right.
That idea, again, trying to imagine if you're one of your own 3 children.
Right.
Or one of your 5 grandchildren who you've cared and caressed and stroked their hair and laid down with them in bed and told them stories, was the next week gunned down in oftentimes a senseless murder.
Oh, almost always senseless. There's no reason.
Excuse me, I guess it would always be a senseless murder. I mean, senseless, yes, but not oftentimes premeditated. Oftentimes murders are...
Yeah, and in addition, it's often brutally done. It isn't that they shoot you, but in the case of the lady whose son was murdered, he was shot and stabbed and then decapitated. They actually cut him up. So, it just goes on. It's just almost beyond comprehension.